Hey everybody, welcome to the Insurance Journal Academy of Insurance's weekly webinar Aftershow. I'm your host, George, and joining for the Aftershow today is the Director of Education for the Academy of Insurance, Mr. Patrick Wraight. I usually just say Director of, but throw education there because that's what you do amazingly well. And today's instructor. Today's class was 21st Century Political Risk. Today's instructor is Mr. Joe Harrington and will be Mr. Joe Harrington as we air this going forward. Joe, welcome to the Aftershow. It's great to see you and great to have you here.
Always great to be here, guys. Good to have you. And I'm glad to know that Patrick has been promoted.
Just one more adding to his accolades. Joe, you certainly made a case. You were painting a very sort of grim, realistic picture of the world stage in terms of the climate we have now. One thing we talk about in our, say, commercial property masterclass is there's no endorsement for war. Does what you're talking about today put us in more of a position where we should be thinking about, or the ISO should be thinking about adding that to any kind of commercial property policy? And that's all I wanted to know. Yeah,
sure. Well, in the first place, my intent was not to make things look more grim, but less grim. We tend to, I guess I didn't do it. We tend to, react to the news, and as the phrase goes, if you only read the news, you think things have never been worse, and if you read history, you know that things have never been better, and that is still largely true. Now, clearly, this is a time of testing for certain things. I'm not certain that they won't meet that test. In particular, whether you like them or not, President Trump's initiatives have not found universal support and have not been able to be implemented, on their own. The Venezuelan thing was easy enough to do on its own. Other than that, there's not a lot of people lining up to, for instance, support our war in Iran or to support our new approach toward trade. So yes, we are a wealthy country, and countries will seek to do business with us, and a lot of smaller ones simply have to do it at the terms we extend. But there's a lot of evidence that there's activity going on to create a rules-based trade order, even in the absence of the United States, and that essentially what this means is, countries do compete to provide stable operating environments. There is very little ideological call today for expropriation for the sake of expropriation, for the revolution, so to speak. It can still happen, and some revolutionaries will consider the previous government to be illegitimate and renounce all of its debts and all of its agreements. That happens much less often today than in decades past, and doesn't have the broad-based ideological support it once had. So that's my thought there. As far as war exclusions and so forth, property policies exclude losses due to war and insurrection. That's a common thing. You can, cover people for, fires and explosions and those kinds of losses. But when you get into any situation where somebody is systematically seeking to create those losses, then it becomes uninsurable. That then requires some sort of government backstop or, arrangements through Lloyd's and so forth to cover that. And usually on a narrow basis, given what's going on. So, yeah, you can't, it's not going to be easy to get coverage for real estate in Ukraine. They're likely to come with a exclusion for war losses. Because there's somebody who's trying to destroy property in Ukraine. That's a simple fact. You can still insure your local house fire and maybe a windstorm loss, but war losses, no. Now, it does, times like this do stress our capacity and willingness to transfer some of these losses to private investors and the public in general. Is the big issue with any kind of political type of risk, and whether it's seizing control of property or destroying property or whatever, can some level of it be accepted, privately with some sort of government support? Our own terrorism program essentially provides liquidity to private American insurers to stay on the same, to maintain the fire and explosion coverage their policies typically cover, but would otherwise be excluded because in the face of someone deliberately trying to cause fires and explosions. That's, what makes things uninsurable. And I do think in this day and age, there is the ability to accept some of these exposures at a public level. If private insurers will take the first layer of risk and use all of their loss control expertise, have skin in the game, have financial stake in using their loss control expertise to reduce the scope and scale of those losses, then the public sector might be able to follow up when the losses truly exceed, catastrophic levels. It's good to have, even though a building is being assaulted by Russian drones, it's still good to have fire resistive construction, sprinklers and other fire suppression equipment on floors, good ingress and egress for the occupants, good management, housekeeping within the building. All of those normal risk control factors are still valid in a war situation, and they can still help to limit the loss, even though there is a level of loss that a private insurer could not, or an amount of loss that a private insurer could not assume. So that, I think, speaks to your question there. I don't know. The bigger question here is suddenly war, the new thing? We have had, an extended period of relative peace, and the Ukraine war was shocking because it was the first interstate European war with European armies crossing each other's borders since the Second World War. And that's bad. And that's big, and it's new, and to say it's unsettling is the understatement of the century. But nonetheless, it has been contained in its sphere of operations, has not brought other countries into a general European war, which might have happened at another point in history, has not brought the aggressor great success. Russia has not conquered Ukraine. Russia, it may not lose control of the territories that it has invaded. To that extent, it might have a success, but it cannot win acceptance of that aggression. Ukraine fights on. Ukraine is drawing a heavy cost, a heavy toll upon Russia, and indeed the experience of 21st century war is that if you embrace war, you will pay a heavy cost, even against an opponent you think is weak, even non-existent. This is the age of democratized violence. Guys with IEDs can do awful lot of havoc to the best military forces in the world, and we have seen that happen. Russia is a big country with a very big military, and it is unable to conquer Ukraine and is incurring, a lot of casualties to do so.
Patrick, I just want to get you in here. Sorry, I just wanted to ask. Patrick, I normally ask you what you think of the topic, and I think I know what you think of peace versus war, but what did you think of Joe's class today? Just want to get you weighing in on this too.
Yeah, sure. And I don't think that Joe painted a overly bleak picture. I think it was a pretty straightforward and honest picture there. But the situation in the world has pockets of concerning issues going on, as I think history tells us there are and almost always will be. I think what I came away with was that there are pockets of significant geopolitical risk out there, and as insurance professionals and insurance practitioners, it would behoove us, if we've got organizations, clients who've got risks in those areas, to be aware of whatever risk management techniques, whatever insurance products might be necessary or available to help them to manage those risks. I mean, beyond kidnap and ransom, beyond even cyber type cover. I mean, we would be remiss not thinking about finding ways to cover those exposures that are providing supplies, providing critical materials, or what have you, in those other countries. And I mean, we know that the supply chain is at risk because it's globalized, and if you have we'll just call it a strait, if you will, that's having a hard time with ships coming through, carrying cargo. I don't know. We'll call it oil, and that creates an issue, right?
Sure.
And our what we're seeing, and from the consumer level, is the price at the gas pump, but the risk there is significantly larger than what we're even seeing day to day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting spin on it. There's a couple of things, as you can see, I was running out of time as it was. A couple of dimensions there that I think would have helped a lot. One is, certain risks today are not easily solved, even with force. Okay, we can't. We are struggling to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. We have a hugely powerful Navy. We have the ability to fly almost unopposed over Iranian airspace, and yet that the nature of international politics and the nature of international violence is such that it's not that easy. It does require a degree of commitment and cost that we're frankly unable to make. I mean, clearly, if we were to land American troops on both sides of the strait, we could open the strait. That's a big cost. That's a big commitment. And that is, certainly one of the potentials of for disruption of international commerce, from one location. And one could say the same thing about the Panama Canal, the Suez Canal, and other straits in various areas. And one might even say the same if suddenly the airways between North America and Europe were subject to some sort of airborne piracy, so to speak. That would be a new consideration. That would amount to a worse geopolitical risk situation, and clearly objectively one. As it is, I think our ability to contain these crises and perhaps create alternatives from them. I'd have to do a study to see, how have we responded to the loss of certain Ukrainian commodities or the difficulty of getting at certain Ukrainian commodities. How have we substituted for them, repriced for them, or whatever? And the same would be the case for Middle Eastern oil. The longer that this goes on, the more cost effective it becomes for other oil exporting countries to get its oil out of there some other way. I mean, Saudi Arabia does have a pipeline to the Red Sea, and other countries presumably can ship their oil to that pipeline and send it at least on a temporary basis. I'm just spitballing here, but in terms of insurance and coverages, it might have been for me to mention, okay, here's what we have under commercial property coverage, typically around the world, not just U.S. policy forms. What's the political gap? Terrorism might be one of them. Political violence, war, insurrection, terrorism, these all might be political gaps that need to be filled in with a political policy that's going to be more manuscripted and more costly and more difficult to underwrite. It does involve more variables, even if they are quantified variables now. Kidnap and ransom, another one. That's, kidnap and ransom can extend to holding property hostage. How is that addressed? And when is it political or not political?
Joe?
Yeah.
We're out of time. We're running up against it. I apologize.
All right.
The class was, as you can gather from Joe's answers, super packed with knowledge, and you've changed my mind. I am now not looking at a bleak picture. I'm looking at a more hopeful picture.
Good.
Joe's also left us with a question: is war the new thing? And a statement: only the uncertainty is consistent. I'll blow your minds and leave you at that. Joe Harrington, sorry to cut you off with the remarks, but we have to get going. I apologize.
Okay.
Many thanks to our instructor today, Joe Harrington, and the Director of Education for the Academy of Insurance, Mr. Patrick Wraight. On behalf of both of these gentlemen, this is your host, George, saying thanks, everybody, for coming to the after show. We will see you next time. Have a great day, everybody. Take care.